Good evening everybody. Today in this video we're gonna see a quick tutorial about using my own visual page builder to build high performance websites. So this tutorial will be split into two parts. The first part you're gonna see how to integrate the visual page builder, and the second part you're gonna see how to leverage my own custom CMS to edit your content in an efficient way. So in this video, we're gonna follow my own blog that I already created in my website. So here is the blog. In the blog section, it's called the Custom Visual Page Builder. So this blog contains all the steps necessary to set up my own visual page builder and integrate it with your website. So we're gonna follow this tutorial in this video. So before we start in coding, we're gonna see a sample of our visual page builder to see what we're gonna build. So I can access my own visual page builder of my website. So here's my administrator panel. Here is the page builder. So as you see in this visual page builder, I can see my website. I can edit everything. So for example, I can edit text. I can edit images like this. Double click on them. Can change anything, almost anything in here. So as you see, you can edit, add things, remove things. So it's very easy, and you can edit everything in an easy way, so without the need of coding or anything. So everything is editable, everything is working just fine. So it's a very good solution for people who want to edit their websites regularly. So let's get started with the code. So the first thing we're gonna do is cloning my own repository, which is the CMS builder repository. So first you have to clone it in your computer. The next step, according to the blog, so we're gonna follow the blog. So we have to install dependencies. So I already installed them. So you only need to install them using npm install like this. So the next step is to configuring the environment variables. So the thing that we're gonna do is creating a .env file. So we have to fill this file with some configurations. So you can use the .env.example file to get a template for this file. So the first thing is the port. By default it's 2002. The next thing, we have to specify some secrets. So this must be a secret. It's recommended to use some password generators to generate some secure secrets. So this secret is used for encryption. We have the server host. We have to specify the local host with 2002. So you don't need to edit this. The best thing to do is keep them like this. So the next thing, we have to configure our MongoDB database. So you can install it on your computer or use an instance in the cloud. So in my case, I have installed instance in my computer, and I have to specify only the database name. So let's call it tutorial. The next thing is Cloudinary. So you have to create a Cloudinary account and fill the cloud name, API key, and API secrets parameters. So let me show you an example. Let's access the Cloudinary. So you have to create an account. It's free. Okay, login. So here's the Cloudinary administrator panel. So we can access our API keys from the dashboard, I believe. Yes, so here is the API keys. If you don't have one, you can create your own keys. So here is the cloud name. You can copy it and paste it. And here's the API key. And here's the secret. So make sure you're not sharing your secrets with anyone. So yeah, So we have also the next domain ID. We're gonna set up it later in this tutorial. And here we have React App Cloud name. You can specify the same cloud name of Cloudinary. And for the SMTP credentials, you can implement them if you're gonna use SMTP server to send mails from your website. So now I think we set up all the necessary configuration. So let's go back to the blog. So now we can run npm run dev to start the development environment. So now the development server started, and we have our administrator panel served from port 3000. So what we need to do is to create our first admin user. So we can specify a username and an email and a password. So now, great. So we created our first admin user. So the next step, according to my blog, is to create a domain. So a domain is basically your website. So a domain is a group of pages that creates a website for us. So if we want to create a website, we need to create a domain. So let's create a domain together. We can create a domain from this panel. We're going to create a new domain. We can call it whatever we want. So let's call it my domain. And for the host, we have to specify the host that we're going to serve our website from. In this case, we're going to serve our website from the local host 2000. So we're going to specify its link localhost 2002. Yes, this is because this is the port of our website will be. So we have to save and publish. So the next thing we're going to do is access the inspect panel in the browser and go to the network panel and see for the fetch and XHR requests. We're going to refresh our page, and we're going to look for a request called status. So in this status, we're going to obtain our domain ID. Here's the domain ID, as you see. So we're going to have to copy it and put it in our environment variables. So here's the environment variable. In the next domain ID, we have to put our domain ID that we created. You can get it from the status request. You're gonna find it in the domains. The first domain will be the ID here. All right, great. So now let's go back to our blog. We created a domain and configured our Next.js application. The next thing is to create and associate pages. So to create pages, let's go back to the development environment. Okay, here's the pages panel. We can create a page. Let's call it home page. For the slug, we have to name this, the first page slug to be home page, like this. So the page builder knows what is the root page of our website, which is the home page. So here we're gonna specify the link and save and publish. Great. So after creating a page, now we can access our Visual Page Builder by clicking on the Builder button. So now here is our page builder, as you see. So next thing we're gonna do is create components and append them in our Visual Page Builder from the template that we're gonna use. So now if you go back to my blog, we're gonna see that the next step is importing our HTML and CSS and JS files of our template. But before that, in this tutorial, let's start by importing some components in our page builder and see how the builder interact with components. So the first thing we're gonna do is creating a component file. So we can head to our project. We can access the interface folder. We have to create a file in the section folder. So I already have a file here, so let's remove it and create a brand new one. So let's create a file, call it my components, for example. Like this. So you can copy the code of creating components from my builder from my blog. So let's copy the first part, which is the interface declaration. So here we have to specify the properties of our component. The next thing is to create a props variable that also contain informations about the fields and the data types that the builder gonna need to know how to render and interact with our component data. The third part is our actual component, JSX component. So here's an example. Okay, and the final part is declaring our component using this code like this. Great. So here is the fourth part. The first part declaring the interface, the second part declaring the properties configuration, and the third part is declaring our components, and the last part, forgive me, the third part is declaring our JSX components, and the final part is declaring the components itself. So the next step after creating a component is imported into the builder configuration file. So what we're gonna do is, okay, let's remove this line. It's importing this exported component, which is called components info, and import it here in the sections. Good. All right, great. So after creating a component in the section file and importing it in the builder configuration, so we can access it from our builder. So if we go back to our builder and refresh the page, we're gonna find our components here. So we can import it in the UI, and boom, we have an error. So object as a React child. I think we have an error. Let me check. Yeah, we have an error here. Here we need 0. Yeah, I'm gonna explain this. Just let me run it. All right, great. So here is the component we have. So as you see, we can edit the component. We can add items. As you see, we can manipulate things. We can remove items. We can edit them. So let me explain how this is working. So the first thing, before creating components, we have to declare our interface, which is the props interface that contain information about the data this component needs. For this component, it needs a title, which is a string. So in the Visual Page Builder, we need to wrap our type into the WC generic type. So the builder knows the type of data. And the second thing, which is the items, which is a list of strings. So it's a list, so we need to put our WC list type generic or generic type, and put inside it the type of the list we have. So in this case, we have a list of strings. All right. Next thing is declaring the properties variable. So this variable is explaining for the builder which types of fields we have. So for example, if I selected my components here and go to the edit panel, I'm gonna see a title here, an input, and we have here a list of inputs. So this constant, or this props variable, is responsible for telling the builder of the types of the field that we have. So for example, I have for the title is a string field. It's a short string, and it has a default value. So for example, if I change this type, and let's say this is a long input, and go back to my page builder and refresh. So what we're gonna do is append our components again and select it and go to the edit panel. So you notice that now I have a long input field rather than a small one. So to give you a more clear example, if I change the type, let's say for the styled type, and save and go back to my Visual Page Builder, refresh. After appending the components and select it, So here I have a silent input. So this is variable is basically telling the builder about the type of our fields and the type of data and how it should be edited in our Visual Page Builder. So the next part is the actual component that's containing the HTML, the JSX elements. So for example, if I remove this title, it would be removed from here. If I return the title, it would be here. I can add anything, I can add static data. So this is basically our components in React. So as you see in these components, we get our data that we declared from this interface, and we have extended some properties. So these extended properties are some, let's say, some addresses. So these addresses, we're gonna use them to specify where is our sections. So for example, we need, for each component, we need to put this properties into the root elements, as you see. So we have to use this C function that is imported from the builder context, and inside the C function we have to specify the address. So for example, in this case, I'm telling the builder that this is my component and this is the root element of it. So every time when I create a component, I have to get these properties and put them into this function and give them to my root element. So the second thing is the title. We have an h1, and for the value we have the title, and we have to access the 0 index. So basically in the builder, generally each piece of data comes with the data and the address. The first element representing the data, the other elements in the array representing the address. So every time we have to put to access the first element, so to get the data. And to get the address, we have to use the C function to get the address from our variable and put it to the parent element. For example, if I removed this, all right, so here I have an h1, I specified the data, but I didn't specify the address. What's going to happen in the builder? So I refresh and deselect. So I can't access the title. As you see, it selects the whole component, but it's not selecting the title. So if I put the address again and save, now the builder knows where is the title. So it's very important to put the address of data in the parent element that's containing the data. So basically, so the next thing, we have a list. So as you know, the items data containing a list of items. So the first thing we're gonna do for the UL, for example, we have to specify the address of the list, and we have to access the list and access the first elements, as I said before, and map each item. We have to render an LI component. The LI component containing the address of the item, containing the key index, and the data of the item. And of course, we have to access the first element to get the data of the of our item. So here is our list, and it's rendered, and we can control everything, as you see. So it must be overwhelming to understand this stuff, but you're gonna get used to it with time. So the final part is declaring the components, and we have to export a variable of type builder component. We have to specify the name of the component that is going to show here, as you see, my component. We have to specify the JSX component, which is this, and finally the props variable. So after that, we have to grab this variable and put it to our builder configuration file. So I hope you understood a little bit about how to create components. So here's in the block, you can find a reference, I think, in the bottom. Yeah, the reference of all data types. So we have string field, we have Boolean field, we have number field, and we have list field that we all use, and we have also the model field that we're going to use to get images and other models from our CMS. So that was just an introduction to show you how importing component is working. The next step we're gonna do is importing our template and trying to import each component of it and use the same structure that we saw in this component. Now the next step is to import our HTML, CSS, JavaScript template. So the first thing we're gonna work with the Bleak template. So here is the template I have, so I can show it to you. So it's very basic. So we're gonna try to implement this template into our Visual Page Builder. So the first thing we need to do is importing CSS files. So let's import first all the static files of our template. We have to copy them and put them to our interface public folder. Okay, great. Now we have to import the CSS files, all of the CSS files, but to know the order of importing and which files is required, we have to access the index page and see the imported links. We can copy this and put this imports into our documents page in the interface folder. Where's the interface folder? Okay, interface folder, pages, documents. So you have to put them here, as you see. So let me just change the syntax to the JSX like this, and make sure that each link starting with a slash, so it's going to work in every page, not only the home page. Now let's import the JavaScript files. So we can access the index.html and see the bottom of the body to see which files are imported. Okay, here's the files. So as you know, in Next.js we have to use the script component instead of the default HTML1. So we have to replace all of these like this and do the same for everyone. So there is two methods to import JavaScript files. The first one is importing them like this, like we did with the CSS one. But a recommended method is not to import the JavaScript files and try to re-implement the logic of interacting with the website using React. So because in this way, not all of the functionalities is going to work 100%, because jQuery is not working well with React. So the best method is try to not import these files and re-implement every functionality using React, so to get a better performance and make sure that all the functionalities is working fine, especially with the page builder. So let me just import all the files. All right, we need more. Okay, let me just make sure. jQuery, Bootstrap, Fake Loader, All Carousel, jQuery filter, image loader, jQuery Magnify, contact, and main.js. Okay, we can get rid of this now. And the next thing we have to do is specifying the strategy of each file. So I recommend you to use the lazy strategy. So strategy, lazy or load. Yes, so great. Now to make sure that our websites we imported the CSS and JavaScript files successfully, we need to test a component, to grab a component from here or or grab all of them and test if they are working and looking good as they should. So I'm gonna copy all of these components of the page, and the next thing we have to do is converting this HTML code to JSX syntax. So we make sure that our website is working with React. So we can look for a HTML to JSX converter online. You can use this tool. So you can put the HTML here and you get JSX version of it. So let's copy this and let's put it into our document, for example, just to test if everything is working fine, and save. Now let's go back to our page builder. So we might have some errors, but don't worry. We need just to refresh the page. We can ignore this because it's only of jQuery. So yeah, as you see, our templates imported successfully. The functionalities are working as they expected to do. The slider is working. The styles are good. Everything's looking good. So now we imported our CSS and JavaScript files successfully. So the next thing we're gonna do is importing each component into our Visual Page Builder and specifying the data it needs, and start editing our component visually. So now we can get rid of this JSX elements. So we can get rid of them. So now we're gonna start to import each component in this page, starting with the header, the about, resume, portfolio, and finishing with the footer into our Visual Page Builder. So let's start with the header. So the first thing we need to do is creating a new component in the section folder. Let's call it header.tsx. So the first thing we have to do is specifying the interface props. So let's just see our template and see how the header is looking like. So here's the header. The header is this whole component. We can make sure by accessing the inspect. So this is the header. So the first thing is declaring the interface. So we have to see what data these components need. So as we see, we have a logo as a text. We need some links, list of links, as you see. We need this semi-title, this huge title, this contact button, and an image. So let's go to our header file and start specifying the interface props. So the first thing, we need a logo. It's going to be a string. So always remember to wrap your type into the WC generic type. The next thing is the contact. So forgive me. The next thing is these links. So we need a list of strings, and each item of the link needs a string for the title, its name, and a link of this link item. So in this case, let's see, links. It's going to be a list, so we have to use the WC list generic type, and inside it we have to specify the data. So it's going to be, let's call it a title. It's going to be a string and an href, because every list item containing a title and its href attribute. Great. The next thing, we have this semi-title. Let's call it small title. It's going to be a string. And we have a huge title. And we have a button. So the button is like the item, the link item. It contains a title and a link. So when I click it, I can specify which link it's going to get me to. So let's call it button. It has a title, going to be a string, and a link or href. It's going to be a string as well. And finally we have an image. So the image, we have to use a predefined interface. It's called media props. So let's call it image and put a media props. You can import this media props from the components, so it's predefined. It contains some informations about the image. So in my Visual Page Builder, which is connected to my CMS, the media interface is already declared, so we can use it because it's already defined. So basically you have to specify a media props interface into your image. Great. So the next step, as you know, is creating the props variable, and we have to specify each attribute. You have to specify its input type. So for example, the logo, it's going to be a string field of type short because it's a short text, and we have to give it, we can give it a default value. Let's call it bleak, like you see here. Okay, great. For the next element, which is links, for the list items, we have to use the list field. And for the list field, we have to specify the props and the default value. Let's start with the props. So each link, as you see, has a title and a href. So let's specify the title. String field. It's going to be short one. And its default, let's call it new link. Like this. We have also the href, which is going to be a string field of type short, and its default value will be a hashtag. So for the link's default value, I can specify which links will be defined when I import the components. For example, I can say, let's call a title, the first link to be home, for example, with href of hashtag. The next thing, let's call it an about link. And let's make a third element and call it contact. So now every new component I will create with my Visual Page Builder is going to come with these properties, with these links, the home and about and contact, and with a logo called bleak. So the next thing is the small title. Going to be also a string field. It's going to be short, and its default value, let's make the same one in the template, as you see. Now the huge title. It's going to be short as well, and the default value would be the same one in the template. Now for the button, it has a title, string field, as you see. Let's call it hire me, for example, and let's put an href. So by the way, if your field type is short, you can define only the default value, because the default value of the type is short, so it's you are not required to mention it. Okay, so for example, I can only put the default value, and by default the type will be short. Okay, And the final one is the image. So basically we need to use a model field, but there is a shorthand for the images fields, so we can use a function called media props. It take as an argument default value. For example, in this case I want the default value of the image to be null. So to explain for you what this media props function do, it's actually export this type of media, which is a model field that's connect to our CMS, and grab an image from the media table and query this exact argument, which is the public ID, width and height, type and URL. So these properties, we need them to render our image. And it also has an alt, which is important for the SEO optimization. So each image has its description. So it's a string field of type long, because the alt might be a long text. So you don't think of it, you don't have to understand how this media props working, but in shorthand you can use this syntax. So every image you can import this function and put null as a default value. So you can understand how it's work later in the next tutorial, if the God wills. So after we specify the properties variable, the next step is creating our JSX components. So let's call it header. So the first thing is to get properties from our interface, which is button, huge title, image, logo, and small title. And also we can get some extra properties with this syntax that's containing information about our section or components. So the first thing to do is importing the C function from our builder context. As you see, you can import it from the builder. And next step, we have to return our component. So you have to go to the index page and copy the header, and use the HTML JSX converter. So we have to put HTML here and get our JSX, copy it and put it into our element, like you see here. Great. Now before editing this HTML, we can declare our component by exporting the variable. So let's call it header comp. It's going to be a builder component. So we have to specify the name. Let's call it header. The comp is header variable, and props. So here's the header. As you see, I exported it from the comp property. So the next step, as we saw earlier, we have to import this header comp in the builder configuration file. Let's put it with our components info that we created earlier. So great. So now if you exit our page builder and refresh the page, you can skip this error. As I said, it's a jQuery error. So now we can import our header. So right click and append, and as you see, I have my components, but I can't edit anything because I didn't change the static values here. So in my header, I didn't change any value. All the values are static. So for example, if I took this bleak static data and replace it with our logo data, so we have to specify the logo and get the first element, always the first element for the data, and save. So now if I select my header and go to edit panel and change anything in the logo, as you see, it's going to be changed in our interface. But the other thing is no, because we didn't replace their values in the JSX component. So the next thing you have to notice that we can't edit it visually, so the builder is not recognizing this component, this element. So what we're going to need to do is specifying the address of this component by the C function, like this, and put the logo like this. Save. Now if we go back to our page builder, the builder now knows this element, and you can select it and edit it visually, as you see. Another thing to mention, that our builder is not recognizing our whole component. So even hovering the component, the builder is not responding, because we didn't mention that this is a component. So to mention that, we have to use the C function with the root element of our component, like this. C, and we have to specify the properties that come with our properties. So let's go back now. As you see, the builder recognized this header. As you see, when I click on it, you can see that I'm selecting the header component. It's very important to specify the address of the component like this, so the builder work well with this component. So we have to do the same thing with all the other data, starting with this element. Let's go. So here is our elements. We have a UL. As you see, we can remove most of them and keep only one. So now we have only one. The first thing, to render a list in the page builder, we have to specify the address for the UL, or the parent element, and give it the links parameter. So here's the address of the links. The next thing, we're gonna render each link. So we have to access the first element of the links and do a map function, get f each link and an index, and we're going to render this li component, as you see. Now we have to specify the address of the link like this. We have to use this variable, not this. Okay, be careful. The next thing is to specify the key, which is going to be the index. And now we have to replace the static values. For the home, we have to use link dot title dot 0. So if you don't know where this title come from, if you remember, in our interface we have a links, which is a list of this object. Each object contains a title and a href element. So here we access our title. So each piece of data has to be declared with its address. So we have to put the address here, link dot title. And for the href, we can specify link dot href of 0. So here is something you need to know. For the href, we don't mention its address because the href is not visual, as you know. So something is not visual, we don't need to tell the builder its address because it's not visually edited. So let me show you. So after we implemented this link, you see that we have this elements, which they come from the default values, which is the home, about, and contact. So now I can edit any one of it, as you see. And to edit the href, I can't edit it visually because it's not appearing in the UI. So you need to access this edit panel, and here is the href. You can edit any href you want this link to go to. So another thing we have to mention when we're working with lists is the best thing the recommended thing to do is, for example, I have this element, which is an A element. It has the address of the title. So this element is a title, so the builder knows it's a title. But the best thing to do is specifying another address, which is the whole item. So like I'm telling the builder, this is my link, not item. This is the parent of the link, and we should edit this link visually, and also we can add let me just refresh the page. So if the page is not working, you can refresh it from this button. So now, as you see, I have this controller, so I can add items and remove them, and that's because I specified another address in this component of and I tell the builder that that component is responsible for editing the title and also the whole link. So I can add link visually, as you see. Or there's another option. If I selected the whole components, I can see here a list of items, as you see. This list of items is my data, and I can remove, as you see, and I can duplicate. So this thing might be a little bit overwhelming and complicated, but with time and practice, you're going to understand it well. Just try to test things by yourself and understand them by yourself. Don't rely on me to give you a brief information about these components. So you have to learn by doing, all right? Because I'm not a good teacher, so I don't know how to explain all of this stuff. You just get started and get your hands dirty, and you're going to learn with time. But I'm here just to give you the basics, and you have to expand your knowledge by yourself. So the next thing we're gonna work with is this element here. We have to work with this small title. I think it's here, so let's replace its value with the small title of 0. Let's specify the address, small title, save. And here we have we can have the access to it and edit it visually. The next thing is the huge title. So let's call it its name. It was huge title, yes, of 0. C huge title. Okay, great. So the huge title is working. Now for the contact button. As you know, for the contact button we have two properties, the title and the href. So let's start by putting the title button or title of 0, and we have to wrap it into an A element. But as you know, in Next.js we have to replace the A tag with the link, but especially in my Visual Page Builder you have to import the link components not from the next link but from the components directory, as you see. So the link elements need to be imported from the comps folder. So it is basically a custom link that is compatible with my Visual Page Builder, so you need to use it instead of the link of the Next.js. So going back, I can put my button inside the link, and the reason why I'm using the link because I have an href attribute, so I need the link to render the href attribute. I can specify the button.title, and I can specify the href, which is going to be button.href of 0. Great. So now my button is editable, and I can see the href in the left panel of So the next thing is the image. So the image has a special way to edit it. So the first thing we have, there's two cases. The first case is the image is defined, and second case the image is not defined. So basically we have to check if the image is defined. So we can put image.media.public ID. So basically, if this public ID is defined, that means our image is defined and we can render it. If not, the image is not exist, we have to put a placeholder in the UI. So let me give you an example. So let's say if the image is not exist, we can do a negation here. So like tell him this piece of code is like a condition if the image is not exist. So we're gonna render this placeholder, which is this image. All right, and we need to give it the address of the media. So we have to specify image.media and save. So basically what's going to happen if the image is not exist, so it's going to be rendered like this. So if if not, we have to render the image. So basically what we did here, we tell the page builder if the image is not exist, render this placeholder and give it the address of the media. So when I click it, I can edit it like this. And if I double click, I can edit, put an image. But before that, let's upload some images. Let's upload these images so we can use them. All right. Now, after I specified the image, nothing happened. It just disappeared because I tell the builder if the image is not exist, renders the placeholder, but I didn't mention if the image is exist. So let's write image.media.public ID. So if the images exist, because I don't have a negation here, we have to render a special component. So it's called media comp. It's also important for the comp directory. And in this component, we need just to give it the properties of the image, like this, like this syntax exactly, and save. And what's going to happen is this image is here. So basically, as a result, let's remove this header and import a brand new one. Here's the image if it's not specified, but when I specify an image, it's going to be rendered like this. So this code will run if the image is defined, and this code will run if the image is not defined. It's going to render a placeholder. So this is basically how we import images in the Visual Page Builder. So it might be overwhelming, as I said before, but with time and practice, this will be easy as drinking water. So great. So now I think we finished our header components. Now we can import the components and edit anything. We can add links, remove them, specify the href, can change the title, the button, and small title. So this is basically how we import components. So working with my Visual Page Builder all the time is just like this process. Grabbing components, import them to our Visual Page Builder, and start replacing the values and the addresses. So basic as that. So now we finish with the first components. Now we're gonna do the same thing with other components of the templates until we complete all the components and we have a functional website that we can edit and deploy. Now for the rest of the components. So now we need to import all of these like we did with this header. So but I think it's getting too late. We have over an hour now, so I think I'm gonna stop and complete in the next part. So the next part we're gonna see how to implement all of these components. Some of them has some complex structures, so we're gonna learn some new stuff. So see you in the next video.